A few days back, I ran into a Reddit post claiming that an AI CEO finally said something honest and we really need to talk about it. On Valentine's Day, Dex Rudd posted on Twitter his thoughts on AI code generation. I believe his take is completely on point, so in this Monday morning review we'll discuss what the creator of Open Code Agent has to say about the crazy times the software world is going through. Bear in mind that this tweet comes right around the time when the head of Claude Code announced that coding is solved. In a recent podcast, Boris Cherny went through pretty much all the talking points we are used to by now. Developers rely fully on Claude Code, they haven't touched code since last November, agents are running autonomously all over the place, productivity per engineer has increased to 100%, and in a year or so, knowing to code will not matter because everybody will be able to do it. What's funny is that these statements are coming from the man in charge of the Claude Code GitHub repository, which, at the moment, has more than 6,000 open issues. But remember guys, coding is solved. Meanwhile, Anthropic is giving $50,000 signing bonuses trying to hire software engineers. Anyway, I know we are all sick and tired of this narrative by now, and this is why Dex's tweet is such a breath of fresh air. Everybody is talking about their teams like they were at the peak of efficiency, and the bottleneck was the ability to produce code. This is a key observation because all the focus at the moment is on the number of lines produced by the new model released this week. But, like I've been saying on this channel for the past year or so, building software products is much more than writing the code, and the code was never the biggest issue in this equation. We have had frameworks like Laravel or Rails for years, which are doing so much of the dev work under the hood that most of the hard parts of wiring things together have been abstracted away for more than a decade. Putting in place an MVP took a few weeks at most, so I doubt that anything meaningful will change if we go from weeks to days. On top of that, no-code tools have been around for years as well, and there was no dent in developer demand. If removing code was the silver bullet, the industry would have already shrunk. Because the real issue was never writing code. In Dex's words, your organization rarely has good ideas, so ideas being expensive to implement was actually helping. The time constraint of having a new feature deployed was a good thing because it forced teams to prioritize, polish, and cut. When implementation is expensive, you are forced to think. You debate trade-offs, you question whether the feature is worth the maintenance cost, and you kill mediocre ideas early because every mediocre idea has a real opportunity cost. This hostile environment helped build the products we know and love. None of them won because they were able to generate code faster than everyone else. They won because they made sharp product decisions under constraints, they picked a narrow problem, executed well, and said no to 1,000 tempting extensions. This is now all gone. That constraint is disappearing, and most people are celebrating it as pure upside. When the marginal cost of shipping a feature drops close to zero, discipline collapses. If a feature takes 10 minutes to generate and an hour to patch, why not try it in 5 different variations? In just a few months, software products will replace well-thought-out, concrete features with half-baked ideas, which will be a nightmare to maintain. Don't be confused, this will only increase the need for software developers in the long term. Adi Osmani was pointing out that when the cost of generating software drops, the surface area of software expands. More teams build internal tools, more departments automate processes, and more experiments get shipped. Entire industries that previously relied on spreadsheets and email threads suddenly have custom dashboards and lightweight apps. If we look at what happened in the past, we learn that lowering friction will actually multiply complexity instead of removing it. The easier it is to create something, the more things get created. This is a classic economic principle called the Jevons Paradox, where as a resource becomes more efficient to produce, we don't use less of it, we find infinite new ways to use more of it. Back to Dex's tweet, his next point is actually really important. The majority of workers have no reason to be super motivated, and most of them want to do their 9 to 5 and get back to their life. These guys will not use AI to be 10x more effective, even though realistically this is not even possible. What AI will do is help people churn out their tasks with less energy spent, which again can become a slippery slope. The industry keeps framing AI as a multiplier of ambition. In reality, for many teams, it will become just an energy saver. Coding, despite all the mythology around it, is the easy part. Writing syntax is mechanical. The hard part is modeling the problem correctly, defining boundaries, understanding data flow, anticipating failure modes, and designing systems that survive change. When you write code yourself, you are forced to simulate the system in your head. You must understand why this function exists, what assumptions it makes, what state it mutates, what happens when inputs are invalid. That mental simulation is the training. If that layer gets outsourced, the training disappears. You still ship features and you still close tickets, but you no longer exercise the muscles required to reason about complexity. So the two people on your team, who are actually doing a lot of the heavy lifting already, are now also in charge of the slop code everyone is producing. What's worth noting is that even when you produce code faster, you are still bottlenecked by bureaucracy and a dozen other realities of shipping something real. As I mentioned in a previous video, the app stores are filled with millions of apps nobody uses. User attention, distribution, discovery, and trust are the real bottlenecks. None of those are solved by generating another 1,000 lines of code in 30 seconds. You'll just have more dead apps in the stores. And this brings us to the awesome trivia of the day. There is this theory of the dead internet. I'll actually dive deeper in a future video. In short, the dead internet theory is a relatively recent narrative claiming that most of the internet is no longer driven by humans, but by bots, automated content farms, AI systems, and coordinated influence operations. The core claim is simple. Sometime around the mid-2010, the organic human-driven web started to decline, and what replaced it is a synthetic layer of algorithmically generated content designed to simulate activity, shape opinion, and monetize attention. Platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit have documented bot networks, spam campaigns, coordinated political influence operations, or engagement farming, and just a few weeks ago, we saw the entire AI community go nuts because of an agent collaboration platform, which turned out to be a security nightmare with slop content. Back to the video, the conclusion of the video is pretty funny because at this rate, the management will end up wondering why each engineer now costs $2,000 extra per month in LLM bills. The truth is that the impact AI will ultimately have on software development is still unclear, but some of the hype is already starting to fade. Just a few days ago, IBM announced it is tripling its entry-level hiring, including software developers, even as many companies plan to replace junior roles with AI. IBM's HR chief argues that eliminating junior roles may improve short-term efficiency but creates long-term talent gaps. Companies that stop hiring early career workers risk shortages of future mid-level managers, higher costs from poaching external talent, slower onboarding, and weaker cultural integration. So IBM believes companies that continue investing in early talent now will outperform the competition in 3 to 5 years. Sam Altman also recently recognized that a significant portion of AI layoffs aren't due to the technology taking jobs, but are instead part of an AI washing trend where it's easier to blame AI than to recognize weak financial performance or past over hiring. This might be the case with Block, which just laid off 4,000 employees. They named AI as the main reason for their decision, but a lot of voices mention revenue pressure and financial issues as the real driver behind the move. If you've made it this far, I have a confession to make. Trust me, I know, you are all sick and tired of the never-ending AI news cycle. I share the same frustration as many of you guys, so please let me know in the comments if you find other interesting tech news worth discussing. If you like this video, you should consider joining our community where I'm posting more dedicated weekly content. Please don't forget to smash all the buttons, and until next time, thank you for watching.